my name is the Bread Pirate, and it is wonderful to have you back. By the way, have you been drinking enough water today? Harvard Medical School recommends 11 to 15 cups of water a day for adults, so if you're feeling a little bit thirsty, you gotta deal with that first and then come back. Come back after you've drank something. Are you good now? All right. Let's get to the video. So, remember a few months ago when we made the tallest build possible in Tears of the Kingdom by creating a giant stick? The episode turned out pretty well, but after I finished it, I was left with this nagging feeling that I hadn't gone far enough, that I needed to go bigger. Not in terms of height, but in terms of weight. There are literally thousands of objects in Tears of the Kingdom, ranging from acorns to steel beams. Surely, one of them must be considered the heaviest of all of them. I wanted to find out what that object is, and then use it to make the heaviest building any player has ever made in Tears of the Kingdom. But to pull off this tremendous feat, I was going to need a few things. Number one, I would need to find a scale for measuring the various weights of objects in the game. Then, number two, I was going to need to use that scale to prove which object is the heaviest in the game. And lastly, number three, I was going to need to find 21 of those objects, whatever they are, and put them all together so that I could truly say that I have the heaviest building possible, and then probably do some tests with it and stuff. But there was going to be a slight problem. The month I was making this video, that being July, was going to be extremely busy for me due to volunteering at summer camps and going on a vacation to see some relatives. So I was only going to have a few days here or there throughout the month to finish this project. I needed to find somebody who could help with the research, somebody who loves doing math and never shies away from tedious labor. It was time that I reached out to an old friend. Andy!
Huh?
I need a assistant. I need an assistant to figure out the weight of the heaviest objects in Tears of the Kingdom.
I got you.
Sweet, all right, get to it. I need a scale. Vámonos. Me and Zeldom, or Andy as I like to call him, go way back. In fact, my first collaboration with him back in 2021 was the reason my channel blew up, since he was a larger YouTuber than me back then. He's also a major in electrical engineering. That means he likes doing math. So, with an able-bodied servant and a plan in place, we began the search. Naturally, we started with the first objective, finding a scale. Thankfully, a quick Google search revealed that we were not alone in this quest. A Reddit user by the name of Recommendation OK6842 had actually devised a clever scale contraption weeks prior, which gave accurate readings on the weight of two objects. But, as cool as that was, we knew immediately that it wasn't gonna cut it. The size of the objects we were weighing were simply too large and wouldn't fit on such a small scale. We were going to need something much beefier. So I set Andy on a mission to try and design a new scale, one that could actually weigh these larger objects. And after only a few hours of tinkering, he came up with this design, which theoretically was going to be able to hold larger objects.
So we just built a basic scale here using some wheels, planks, and stabilizers. And using this kind of scale, we can measure the weight of two different objects. So let's go ahead and set one block here in the center of that. Oh god, it's struggling.
It quickly became evident that even though the scale worked for smaller, lighter objects, as soon as you put anything relatively heavy on it, it would just completely break apart. So despite Andy's best efforts, this ended up being a dead end. But that was okay, because I had a theory. With the previous scales, we had been comparing each object directly to one another. But what if instead we exerted an identical force on two objects and measured which one moved the furthest? For example, if I punched a tissue box with the exact same amount of force as a YouTube play button, chances are the tissue box would go a lot further since it is lighter than a play button. And because one of them went further than the other, we can conclude that the play button is the heavier object and the tissue box is the lighter object. Fun fact, this is exactly what Newton's second law of motion is trying to explain when it says acceleration equals force divided by mass. If the mass is greater, then naturally the force will mean less, so the object will go a shorter distance. Anyways, all we needed to do now was apply that same logic to Tears of the Kingdom, and we could find the relative weight of every object. So let's see what we got here. Spring? No. Fans? No, it's gonna take forever. Yes, rockets. Now we're talking. They're consistent, they're cheap, and they move objects just enough distance to give us meaningful measurements. And just as a test here, let's see how weight impacts them. So here's a wooden box. Let's shoot it up with two rockets, and it reached a maximum height of 233 meters. Awesome, now let's just subtract the maximum height from the minimum height in order to get our distance, which is 103 meters. Pretty respectable distance if I do say so myself. And now let's repeat the exact same experiment with a metal box. If it truly is heavier, then it will go a shorter distance. And lift off. Okay, so it appears we started at a height of 23 meters, and our maximum height here is 123 meters. Sweet, so if we do our simple math again, then it appears that this metal box went up a height of exactly 100 meters. And what do you know? 100 meters is definitely a shorter distance than 103 meters, which means the metal box is heavier than the wooden box. We even repeated these experiments multiple times over, and every time we got the same results with only a margin of error of 1 meter. Huzzah for science! Dilly dilly! Dilly dilly! We had finally found a way of measuring the weights of objects. It was our first major breakthrough. And not only that, but we were about to have another one. So remember Reddit from earlier? Yeah, we found a spreadsheet on it, but not just any spreadsheet, the spreadsheet, with every single item, object, and ID in the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Hallelujah! And it was all thanks to a small community called Hyrule Engineering, who had a Discord server and was piling all their resources together to research engineering in the game. Only problem was, it was a little bit confusing. Despite technically being one spreadsheet, it had 14 tables on it, and each of them gave completely different information. But thankfully, I was able to get a little bit of help from the people on the Hyrule Engineering Discord server. It was there that one person suggested that if I want to find the heaviest object in the game, I would need to go to the Proving Grounds Trap Shrine. I had never heard of this shrine. It wasn't on my radar and I hadn't unlocked it yet. So I decided to go hunt the shrine down and figure out what was going on inside of it. This was my reaction. Oh, wow. Oh, mama. Oh, it's beautiful. So grand. It's opulent. Never, in my wildest dreams, did I imagine that you could actually get this item outside of a shrine. But gosh darn it, you can. This was easily the largest object that either me or Andy had tested, and it was completely incompatible with all of our previous scales. Yet, it still was able to be measured with the rocket method. So I'll let Andy handle this explanation, because he's the one who actually did most of the testing.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, the rocket method turned out to be extremely handy since these giant blocks don't budge for anything else. We did several trials with the rockets, and we found out that when we attach them to the giant blocks, they reach an average height of 43 meters high, which is significantly lower than any other items we tested. So, given these results and those findings by the Hyrule Engineers community, it's safe to say that this block is truly the heaviest object in all of Tears of the Kingdom. Back to you, Brad.
Thanks, Andy. We had finally proven what the heaviest object is, and we didn't even need to use all of those convenient wooden scales in the Gerudo Desert, which I definitely didn't have any idea about until after scripting this video, but which would have made this whole process a lot easier. But with all that finished, we could finally move on to the final step. Because sure, finding one giant block is great, but what I really wanted was a super weapon. And to do that, I was going to need to make the world's heaviest building ever. There was only one obstacle in my way: summer break. It was about to start for me, so I decided instead of doing all of this work myself, I was going to force Andy to do all of the menial labor of building and recording this giant structure for me, which he graciously agreed to do.
Nope, I can't do that.
What?
I'm starting my job in a week, and I need to finish my video before I leave.
Ugh, freaking responsible adults. Way to ruin the fun. What am I supposed to do now? Build it myself? Like a lunatic?
So, can I go now?
Oh yeah, you could get out of here. The exit is on your left. Or you could do that. That works too. I didn't know he could do that. Oh, well, I guess I gotta go deal with this summer break before I can make my super weapon. Could you excuse me for a second? Okay, I'm back. Talk about a crazy 2 weeks. Went to a Renaissance fair, took a 10-hour drive to see some relatives, and then volunteered at a kid's summer camp for 6 days straight. My team even won an award during skit night. Way to go, Red Team. Anyways, so where was I? Oh, right. The world's largest super weapon! I was going to build the heaviest structure any player had ever made. How heavy is that? Well, according to the spreadsheet from earlier, 1 gigablock, which is what I'm going to call them, 1 gigablock is equal to 50,000 units of in-game mass. But in-game units aren't really like pounds or kilos. They're their own thing. So to put it into perspective, 1 apple is equal to 10 mass. Wooden crates are equal to 750 mass. Metal crates are equal to 2,500. And giant spike balls are a measly 20k mass, which is nowhere near as big as the blocks that we're working with. But not only that, as most players know, you can combine a maximum of 21 objects together using Ultra Hand, meaning we can actually achieve a total mass of 1,050,000 units. All I needed to do was collect 21 gigablocks. However, smuggling 21 gigablocks out of a Sheikah shrine was going to be fairly tedious, which is why I did some digging and discovered that there isn't just one largest object, there are 5. 1 random orb and 4 different gigablocks, which all weigh 50,000 mass. And 2 of them were going to be much easier to hunt down since they were located in clusters in the Wind Temple. So I did just that. I went to the Wind Temple, I fused a bunch of blocks to my weapons, and then I reloaded the area until I could get 21 blocks in my inventory. Then I took all of them to Terrytown to unfuse them and build them in a giant tower. And within 1 hour, I had finally acquired the heaviest build in Tears of the Kingdom. However, let's just say it didn't quite achieve the super weapon status that I was hoping for. You know what, let me just show you what the first battle I did looked like. Uh-oh, I'm not ready, please, I'm not ready.
Nope.
Whoa, I'm not ready. Please, I'm not ready to die, I'm so young. No, my block. Where'd it, no. Oh, please say it isn't so. I left it for 2 seconds. Where did it go? It's unbelievable. This tower has the render distance of a toddler with ADHD. The second you look away, it disappears, which meant that I had to go back to an old save file and do all of it over again. Yay. So, for the Super Weapon Mark II, I made sure to first take it to Hyrule Field for testing. That way it wouldn't fall off any cliffs and disappear. But even after taking the super weapon to a safer location, it was immediately clear that this super weapon wasn't very weapony. For some reason, despite having over 1 million mass, it did hardly any damage. Which means that more weight does not necessarily mean more damage in Tears of the Kingdom. In fact, the only cool and remotely dangerous thing this weapon did is it was able to kill 2 style enemies in 1 hit. So, not great for combat. But you know what it is good for? Making ridiculous builds. Altogether, this thing is 168 meters tall, which makes it perfect for bridging over lakes, getting up to high places like Hyrule Castle, or simply confusing the monster AI. I even was able to turn the thing into a fortress and use it to trap some marching Bokos and then rain fire and death on them. So in conclusion, if I had to give this block a grade, I would say that it gets a 2 out of 10 as a super weapon. However, as a building material, I think it's easily a 10 out of 10 and that the community's been sleeping on it. I personally see a lot of potential in this block and I plan on using it in more of my buildings. However, if you want to see some real super weapons, then I actually just did a video with Zeldom on his channel where we graded absurd Zonai machines. It'll be premiering right after this video releases.
And Bread does a lot of stupid things in it, so it's worth watching.
Sorry, what?
Nothing.
Huh. Oh, but there was one other thing I wanted to say. Thank you to everybody on the Hyrule Engineering Reddit and Discord server for helping me find the information I needed. I especially want to shout out Travo, Lord Robert, Goodknife, Seacourse, and especially Phil, who created the community spreadsheet that everyone uses. I'm definitely going to be visiting there more in the future and talking about it in future videos. So, with everything out of the way, thank you for watching the video. And until I see you next time, have fun storming the castle.
Although Barton and I have succeeded in building the heaviest object possible in Tears of the Kingdom, it is still nothing in comparison to your mother.